The people who built the app you opened this morning have spent more money studying your brain than any doctor, teacher, or therapist you have ever had. And they used that knowledge to make sure you cannot stop. You picked up your phone before you finished reading this sentence. Not because you wanted to, because you were designed to. What you are experiencing every time you open a social media application is not a choice in the way most people understand choice. It is the output of an engineered behavioral system, specifically constructed at considerable expense and sophistication to override your prefrontal cortex and deliver you directly to your dopamine system. And it is working exactly as intended. Here is the neuroscience of what is actually happening. Dopamine is the brain's anticipation chemical, widely misunderstood as the pleasure chemical, which it is not. Dopamine is not released when you receive a reward. It is released in anticipation of a possible reward. This distinction is the entire mechanism. The slot machine does not release dopamine when you win. It releases dopamine every time you pull the lever because the reward might come this time. The variable ratio reinforcement schedule, where rewards arrive unpredictably, sometimes on the first pull, sometimes on the 100th, produces the most persistent, compulsive behavior ever documented in behavioral psychology. It is more powerful than fixed rewards. It is more resistant to extinction than any other conditioning pattern. And it is the exact architecture of every social media notification, scroll, and engagement metric ever designed. The scroll is the lever. The like, the comment, the viral moment. These are the intermittent rewards. The unpredictability of when the reward will arrive is precisely what makes the behavior impossible to stop voluntarily. You are not addicted to social media. You are conditioned by the most sophisticated variable ratio reinforcement system ever built, one with essentially unlimited capital, access to the world's best behavioral scientists, and a financial model that requires your attention to survive. Now here is where the neurological damage extends beyond the dopamine system. The default mode network, the brain region active during rest, reflection, introspection, and creative thought, requires uninterrupted time to function. Research from Microsoft and multiple academic institutions has documented that the average human attention span has decreased from 12 seconds in 2000 to approximately 8 seconds in the present day. The average goldfish maintains approximately 9 seconds. The implication is not that humans have become less intelligent. It is that the prefrontal cortex's capacity for sustained focus has been eroded by the constant interruption of the dopamine loop, to the point that rest itself has become uncomfortable. Most people cannot sit in silence for 90 seconds without reaching for their phone, not because something interesting might have happened, but because the absence of stimulation has become neurologically intolerable, because the brain, conditioned to expect a dopamine hit every few seconds, registers the absence of that hit as a form of discomfort. This is withdrawal, not metaphorically, clinically. The second major neurological effect is the distortion of the brain's social calibration system. Human beings evolved in tribes of approximately 150 individuals, a size known as Dunbar's number, where social status, reputation, and belonging were assessed through direct, embodied, reciprocal interaction. The brain's social circuitry is calibrated for this scale. Social media exposes that same circuitry to 10,000 simultaneous social evaluations, likes, follower counts, comment ratios, viral comparisons, at a speed and scale the nervous system was never designed to process. The result is a chronic activation of the social threat system, a persistent low-grade state of social anxiety, comparison, and status monitoring that was never meant to operate continuously. The brain cannot tell the difference between being excluded from a 150-person tribe, which historically meant death, and receiving fewer likes than another account. Both activate the same threat circuitry. Both produce the same cortisol response. The third effect is the erosion of identity coherence. Psychologist Sherry Tuckle at MIT has documented extensively what she calls the presentation self, the curated, performed version of identity developed for social media consumption. When the gap between the presentation self and the experienced self becomes too wide, when the version of you online has almost no relationship to the version of you at 2 a.m., the psychological cost is a profound disconnection from genuine identity. You no longer know what you actually think because you have spent so long performing what you were supposed to think. You no longer know what you actually enjoy because enjoyment has been replaced by the question of whether the enjoyment is worth documenting. Here is what this is not. This is not a conversation about deleting social media. This is not a moral argument. This is a conversation about using a tool with accurate knowledge of what it costs and making conscious choices about when that cost is worth paying. The practices that restore neurological sovereignty are not complex. 30 minutes of phone-free time in the morning before the dopamine loop is activated. 1 full day per week of intentional disconnection. The deliberate cultivation of activities that require sustained attention, reading, building, creating, that rebuild the prefrontal capacity that the scroll erodes. And the most radical practice of all, learning to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing what is happening on the other side of the screen for long enough that the discomfort passes and the silence becomes something else entirely. Something that used to have a name. That name is presence. And presence is the thing that social media was specifically engineered to prevent, because a present mind is a mind that does not need to keep scrolling. Welcome to MindShade. If you want videos like this, please subscribe for more.